Wow, Paco and Nando, how's
Hi.
it going? It's been what, 7 months about?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Right, that's right. Yeah, I haven't seen you.
The Liquor PH team would have visited at least one or two more times.
Yeah, we definitely had that plan. Your last visit, that's what we were talking about, no? Like, and then this pandemic thing hit, and it's had to be virtual.
Yeah, how's that working for you guys, this whole change? Before we get into the whole Luisita thing, how is this affecting your day-to-day lives?
Well, for me, I don't move around as much, but the company is operating as if there's no virus. We continue to operate the factory. The sugar planters continue to plant because there's no crowd when you plant. You're by yourself, so it's relatively safe.
Okay. When is usually distilling season anyways?
So normally it goes side by side with the harvest.
Okay.
So when we start the harvest in November, the distillery will start to operate like 2 weeks after. So let's say by the end of November, and then the harvest will end. Let's say depending on the size of the crop. So let's say it ends. The harvest would tend to end around end of March, but the distillery will continue to operate until July.
Oh, that's a lot of operations. Then after that, it's just repairs, tweaks, anything you need to do before the
Yeah,
next.
yeah. You need to repair these factories. They need the distillery is pretty easy to repair. You need to buy maybe a month and a half. But the sugar mill itself needs at least 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wasn't aware.
Yeah, I mean things wear out. You'll be surprised. You like I have pictures of let's say where they do the fermentation. So and especially sugar with some in the presence of oxygen and metal, these things corrode. So becomes acidic.
Of course.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, we're talking about now alcohol. So, the one thing is, how did you and your family, or how did you yourself, Paco and Nando, how do you guys get into this? Because you guys, like you said, you're sugar farmers, but you're not rum makers. So how did you guys get into this in the first place?
Our family has had this estate since 1958. So, I was born in 1962. So growing up, it was very common for us to spend our vacations in the estate in Tarlac. I was aware that we were planting sugarcane, that we made sugar. Of course, as I got older, I got aware that we were producing rum. I grew up in this atmosphere. I knew what the family was involved in. One of the stories I really remember from my dad was after the war, World War II, the production of drinking alcohol was stopped. All of the distilleries in the US were producing alcohol for the war. The Allies had won. Everybody wanted to celebrate, but there was no alcohol. And my dad was telling us a story that he and my grandfather, at that time we owned another sugar mill, a much smaller one, also in Tarlac. So they produced alcohol.
Oh.
They used this as gasoline, as fuel for their vehicle. And they went to, at the time it was called Fort Stotzenberg. It's now called Clark Air Base.
Right. Okay.
Lots of soldiers are in Fort Stotzenberg. And my father and my grandfather drive in. And the base commander was surprised because it was the only vehicle running at the time. And he had only one question. How is that vehicle running? Because gasoline was also in short supply. So my grandfather just casually said, oh, we use alcohol. And the eyes of the base commander lit up. It was like, you have alcohol? Well, the base commander said, stop using the alcohol for fuel. I'll give you all the gasoline you need, but give me all your alcohol because And you had soldiers flying in from Okinawa, from Japan, just to get their one, because this was the only supply after the war. So that stuck to me that, wow, we were at one time rum producers at an important time.
Paco, I mean, how about you? I mean, why did you decide to follow in the farmer footsteps of Nando?
So growing up on the dinner table, it was always, we'd always, as a family, as we talk about all of these experiences from the past, I guess it was his way of sharing also with us the knowledge he picked up over the years. And so, you know, as a young kid listening to these stories and waiting until I could take that first sip. And I remember, I think one specific story, especially relating to rum, is I remember the first time I ever tried rum was I was 12 years old. We were having dinner. My dad had ordered himself a rum and coke or a Cuba Libre, and he said, "Here, have a few sips." So that was the first time I actually got a bit of a buzz, and that's when, you know, I figured, hey, there's more to spirits than just flavor. There's also these feelings that come with it, and so from there on, like I started really understanding more of the romance behind spirits in general.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, both your stories about just growing up and, Nando, I could just see, kind of running through the factory or running through the cane fields, as a little kid.
Oh, yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
When you're on the farm like that, there is a bit of romanticism and,
You know, you just, I wouldn't say all your troubles go away, but you just feel this sort of sense of peace, you know, being out there and, you know, really seeing what goes on behind the scenes. You get to appreciate the people who are involved, the farmers, you share ideas on the field, and it's in this really relaxed and simple environment. Yeah.
yeah. Now, of course, you guys have a history of making, but making it for yourself versus, really getting and doing it in a professional manner is different. So, when doing research for creation of your rum, Luisita, where has that taken you in terms of travel,
Probably I'll start with the most unique place. When we decided already to launch the project, we were told to attend this, it's called the Rum Fest. The biggest one of all is held in Florida. So Paco and I went there, and that's where we got to meet, in one, you don't have to visit all their distilleries. In one small place for 2 days, you meet everybody in the rum industry. We did our best
Try
to
everything.
try as many booths as possible. So we got to meet quite a number of people. We met, well, everybody was there. Of course, you start with Bacardi, Plantation was there, all the big brands. I've also been to Cognac, France. So you'll wonder why, what was that got to do with rum? So there's a famous cognac producer who makes also a very good premium rum. I was invited to be his guest for 2 days there. That was a very unique experience because you see the French. The French are really good when they do craft. So everything is done slowly. Everything is done in a small way. So that's one. And then when I travel, whether it's for rum or even just for pleasure, I always sneak in a visit to a winery. I've been to the lodges in Porto. So I've been to Rioja. Last year I went through the Loire Valley, and I make it a point to contact the owner of the winery, and I prefer the ones where I can meet the owner himself, because then you learn a lot more. Oh, one more thing, when Papo and I went to the Rum Fest in Florida, we're rum makers, but as you said, we started as sugar farmers. So 2 days in the Rum Fest, but as you know, the center of sugar farming in the world is there. There's a place there called Canal Point, Florida. So we had to book a visit to the sugar farms. So
Yeah,
we were
that makes
probably the
sense.
only rum guys who, after the Rum Fest, we went to visit a sugar farm.
I mean, that was really memorable. Like, I mean, Frank, if you could, I mean, imagine like coming from tasting rum for 2 days and then you go to like the mecca of sugarcane research and farming in the world. So it's just, you're just you're in heaven basically. For me, that was my most memorable trip, and that really sort of sparked the excitement even further on a personal level to pursue and go deeper in this world of rum.
Well, it
Yeah,
makes
even like when we went to Cognac, I don't know how many people do that, but when the host was showing me around, uh, he was surprised because I went to the field and I put my hands into his soil because he was trying to describe it. And I always do that if I see these farms, and I'll dig into it. And I don't know if I was supposed to do that, but that's just it. I want to see, as you said, from the beginning to the end. I wanna know what's going on.
Begins with the soil.
Yeah,
yeah.
begins with the soil. Yeah.
I mean, you guys are, I mean, one of the few real rum makers that do everything in house.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you travel a lot for work or a bit of pleasure. Is there any places, rum producing islands or countries you would like to visit for pleasure and a bit of research?
Of course, if you're in rum, you have to go to Jamaica, Barbados. Um, I'd like to also go to, of course, Cuba, um, and Puerto Rico. Cuba is really going to be interesting.
How about you, Paco? What's on your like bucket list for rum?
Caribbean is definitely is up there as being, not just for rum but also for a nice vacation. I also want to go to Kentucky, where a lot of these barrels come
Right.
from and are made. So I'd like to see many of like the cooperages and like, you know, these are ex-bourbon barrels. So it would be nice to see actually where these guys are coming from. So we
That's right. Good
increase
choice.
our knowledge in terms of like different types of wood, different types of chars, different types of toast.
Well, if you ever want to visit a distillery or two in Kentucky, I know a guy that imports bourbon right now. So no worries about that.
I'll give you a call right after this.
Now, all right, the rum. I've had it. From the very first time I tasted it, I fell in love. But can you tell us? Can you explain what makes Luisita Rum different? What makes it special? What makes it it?
What makes Luisita Rum feel very special to us and to me also on a personal level is that is that farm to bottle concept where my love affair with my love affair really started with sugarcane. And I think rum, it all leads back to sugarcane. It's seeing that whole process from selecting cane varieties, from looking at the land, touching the soil, talking about farming practices, seeing the hard labor, the behind the scenes that go on in the planting of sugar. And then you come into the harvest, and then you go into the milling, and then you see different parts of the mill. And it's nice to just to be able to dive into each and every aspect of the whole process of finally getting it into the bottle. So I think that's really what makes it feel special for us, the team and myself, is that we're able to see literally farm to bottle the whole process, and we're able to make small tweaks in each stage to sort of affect the finished product.
Yeah, like, as you were saying, the farm to table. I mean, the single estate. I mean, this is a rare thing amongst not just rum, but any liquor, spirits maker altogether. Does that, like, how does that happen that you guys were able to do this? Like, you said, you know what? We're just gonna do everything in house. We're gonna buy the barrels and just keep it here.
We've always done it this way. I didn't realize later on, as we got deeper into rum, that I didn't realize that a lot of rum makers didn't even make, first of all, they don't even have their own sugar mill. And definitely they don't have any farm to speak of. And sometimes the molasses comes from another country. Um, so I didn't realize that we had this unique situation.
I guess we can also say that we have had barrels aging in the estate for a few, I would say a few decades now, no, Pop? I think
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
like it was never commercial. It was
Yeah,
more after,
personal, yeah,
yeah,
personal
it was more
consumption.
for
Yeah.
personal consumption. So it's just been a part of our life, our culture here, so to speak. We propagate the yeast. We choose the molasses ourselves. We're very as meticulous as we are on the farm. That really carries over all the way until it enters the bottle.
We talked about farming and single estate, but of course, you guys, looking towards the future is sustainability with your sugar cane and the farm. Could you guys talk about that? Because, some people forget you have no choice but to be sustainable.
Oh
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. One thing about the sugar mill, we run the sugar mill on 100% biomass power. So as you know, when you bring in the sugar cane, you crush it, you get the juice out, and that's what becomes the sugar and the molasses. So the remaining fiber, they call this bagasse. This is fed to the boiler, and that's the only fuel we use to run the operation. Sometimes the sugar cane, when you harvest sugar cane, the leaves are left on the ground.
Right.
And some farmers prefer to burn this, which we're totally against. So what we do is we tell them, don't burn that. We're going to collect that for you. So what we do, we have these balers, we have these baling machines that we invested in the last few years. So we collect all of that. Instead of them burning it, we use that again to feed our boilers. So we are 100% biomass powered. And then all the waste that you find in the factory, there's like a lot of ash that's left over, some mud from when you crush the sugar cane. Anything left over, we do composting. We
That really helps the farm.
And that's huge. That's about I mean, there are mountains of this thing, and we compose that. We make sure it's decomposed into something you can put back into the soil, and then enriches the soil for the next harvest. Paco's really into this also. So
Yeah, I guess like my dad touched on the mill side, but on the farm side, actually there's a good documentary now. It's this movement called regenerative farming.
Okay.
So I'll quote what my dad sort of taught me a few years ago. Is he said, don't focus too much on what's growing. Focus on what makes it grow. So that sort of hit me in that we should be focused on the soil more than anything else, because you can anything will grow on top of it, but it's the soil, how good your soil is. That's what's going to create a good sugarcane plant, or maybe some good grapes, or maybe even your salads. We want to reach this point where you don't have to do anything to the soil but plant the sugarcane, and it's going to grow and reach its maximum potential, and you harvest it, and you just do the same thing every year, year on and year out, and eventually this will also translate into better sugar and definitely better rum.
Yeah. I mean, Nando, you got to be proud about with Paco's mindset on the farming itself, right? I mean, I'm not gonna lie, you don't hear many people, multi-generational, stick within farming. Usually, after the younger kids, they go off to the big city, or they do something else.
exactly, yeah, yeah.
This has to make you proud that Paco is so.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There's nothing better than working with family in business. That's the best. You
Yeah.
can't ask for anything better. I have another son, and hopefully he joins in as well. So, and hearing him talk about these things, so it looks like he's picking it up.
Yeah, quite well. Now we're talking, of course, a lot about the cane. Can you share any details on the types of sugar or sugar cane you are growing in Tarlac and how it's impacted the characteristics of the rum itself?
So with relation to the cane in Tarlac and in our region, no, it's we don't have much irrigation. Now there are um, government agencies like the Sugar Regulatory Administration of the Philippines who are tasked with developing new varieties for the different sugar growing regions in the Philippines. We tend to select these drought resistant varieties, and the characteristics, this is on a personal level, just like looking at it from a non-scientific point of view. The roots are much deeper. They go much deeper. The root systems go much deeper in these varieties. So I'd like to think that, well, definitely for one, by them doing that, they're able to find more moisture down in the ground. But at the same time, they're able to get minerals down in the ground, which is essentially what we taste in the molasses. Now, this translates to flavor. They're able to mine more flavors from the ground, so to speak. And then at the same time, many of these varieties have, I call them solar panels, but they're leaves.
Yeah.
Um, so nature's solar panels. So these
Very
varieties
important.
would have very wide leaves, so that during the dry months and more so actually during like now when it's raining, there's not much sunlight. You'd have bigger solar panels so that you have more photosynthetic activity, which directly translates to higher sugar yields in our cane. Uh, and maybe just a fun tidbit. In the industry, actually in Canal Point in Florida, they teach you, you have this refractometer or like that measures the Brix reading
Bricks.
of
Yeah.
the sugarcane juice.
Hmm.
And that sort of tells you how sweet the cane is or if it's mature or not. No? What I like to do, because it's also healthy for you, is to choose which varieties are sweetest, like the varieties that I grow personally. The selection was made by, I'll cut the cane once it's mature. I'll run it through the juicer. I'll take a glass of it, whichever was the sweetest or the top three or the top five, depending on how many I'm trying. Those would normally be the varieties those are the varieties that I'm currently growing. So it's really it's more romantic, and then you use your senses. It's also very craft. So that's how I personally do it.
And it's healthy for you, Frank.
Yeah,
Freshly
very
crushed
healthy for you.
sugarcane juice.
Oh, I've had
Yeah.
it before. Oh no, I love it. I've just, with
It's
the
really
machine,
good.
put it in the cranker and juice.
Yeah.
Nice. So, are we gonna see maybe a Paco's sugarcane pick rum in the future? I mean, I'm not skipping ahead. I'm just curious. I just,
Uh,
Definitely an idea.
maybe,
Uh-huh.
yeah, that is an idea. We definitely, if we find one outstanding sugarcane variety, and actually this last year we've really dialed down and focused on, hey, I think instead of planting 20 varieties, let's really narrow it down to maybe five or at the most 10. Not just to help the farmers and the farms, but to also just ensure that we're constantly innovating or introducing or choosing the right varieties for our region, our soil.
Yeah, we keep track of all the. So if let's say there's about 10,000 hectares planted to sugarcane being brought to the mill. So our team of agronomists keep track of what everyone is planting. So we have a database of planter X planted 2 hectares this variety on this day, and so then we predict when will that mature, so we know when it's coming in. So everything's all set.
no, for sure. At least there's a plan, and you know, you could try to set expectations and try to control variables because obviously variables could be either the bane or the boom of any
Yeah.
business.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Now, the one thing that's also interesting is you guys mature everything on site, like even in certain locations. Can you talk to us more about the maturation?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything is done in the estate here at Luisita. Uh, right now we have two bodegas. So I'm in one of them, and then the other bodegas across. This building we call it Bodega Number One. Uh, we chose it because of the heritage for one, and when we had the consultant come over, one of our consultants come over, he you have to enter. He said you have to enter these potential bodegas, and it's again about the feel. It's you have to feel the environment that the rum is going to be aging in. You don't want it too hot. You don't want it too cool. You just want it just right. It's got to be that if it's comfortable for you, it's gonna be comfortable for these guys.
Wow. And, oh, I should ask, when you put it in, when you put the distillate inside the barrel, I know my geeky whiskey society people are going to want to know, what ABV do you guys enter it in?
Okay. So yeah, we're very transparent about this. We put it in at 65%,
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
and actually, well, that's preempting it, but we have a small batch now where we've tried going a bit lower at maybe 60, and then we tried going a bit higher at 70, just to see how they would come out. So again, it's going back to this. There's a lot to discover, so we're constantly trying as best we can to explore these other options. But as a rule of thumb, we put it in at 65. So most of our barrels are the distillate is at 65 ABV.
Now, this being the tropics, right? It is a hotter area compared to even some places in the Caribbean. You know, can you talk to us more about the aging and, you know, how the heat and humidity affects aging of barrels? Because, you know, in Scotland, you're looking at temperate, it's not humid at all, right? And they're average to make something good at least 10 years. But this is the tropics. Hotter countries tend to be shorter periods to age something really good. Can you talk to us more about what's going on with you guys over there?
Yeah, in our case, definitely. So in Scotland, every year, you know, this thing they call the angel share, the evaporation. So if you start with 100 liters, you lose 2% of that.
Yeah.
Of course, here in the Philippines, it's like you're pressing on the accelerator for 12 months. So we have a bigger angel share. It hurts. You lose more. Um, and I can be 100% sure it's just the angel going out. Because Paco has the keys to the bodega. So there's no little devil there. And we're getting anywhere from 6 to 8, and then maybe sometimes even as high as 9% on the first year.
Wow.
And then on the second year, it's starting to taper off on the third year. So
Nice.
because of that, you get more angel share, but what everybody says, and in the Caribbean where they've done this also for a long time, basically 1 year in tropical aging is like 3 to 4 years in continental aging, let's say like in Scotland or anywhere in temperate countries. So if we're offering a 3-year rum, maybe that's like a 9 to 12-year-old in Scotland. That's what they say. And
that's what they say.
yeah, our experience is, and you know, we have these consultants who have been in the spirits business for many, many years, and they've been involved with some of the big names, and they were surprised that, you know, as early as 18 months, they were already saying this thing's aging really, really fast. And that's the unique climate that we have, and the unique climate of Tarlac, and the unique climate of that bodega.
Yeah, that bodega, that's it was
Yeah,
really
used to,
humid.
yeah.
That felt like 95% humidity when I walked in there.
Yeah.
February, it was still nice to walk in there, like, woo!
Yeah.
The sweat just dripping
And-
off. But it's it was a good sweat. You know, I'm not complaining.
And there we were taking straight out of the barrel at like 65 ABV barrel strength, you know, so that added
And
to
of
it.
course,
That was good
it's not
fun though.
only it's not only the heat. When you have a more humid environment, when your environment is humid, between the alcohol and the water, if you're humid, it's the alcohol that leaves the barrel.
Yeah.
And so, unlike in a dry environment where there's no humidity, it's the water that escapes
Right.
from the barrel. So,
Yeah.
we have the heat and the humidity. So, but that's the downside. But the upside is we feel we're getting the rum is aging faster. It's maturing faster.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, it's a beautiful product. I will always say great things about it. I mean, I just, as a whiskey guy, as a guy that's drinking, I don't even want to count how many different whiskeys I've had in my life.
Okay.
Let's not go there. I think that's, you're going down a slippery slope on that. But I will put your stuff up against any rum in the world, anytime. Yeah. And that being said, why a single barrel to launch it and not going to be widely released, right? Only 262 bottles available. I mean, why? What's going on? I mean, I'm not complaining. I love a good single barrel. I love high ABV, but I want to hear it from the horse's mouth.
Okay. As Paco maybe had mentioned earlier, we had barrels in the estate for personal consumption all these years. They would, we'd put some really good rum in there and allow it to age. We had this history of keeping this. And of course, we knew what it tasted like. Year in and year out, whenever we would get from these barrels, we knew what good aged rum tastes like. And so when, something maybe I'll go back a few more, go back a little bit. When I acquired the estate in 2014 with my partner, Martin Lorenzo, I acquired it from my family at that time. And that was when I decided that, since it's just he and I running the show, this was the time to go into commercial rum business. And why single barrel? Because we felt, part of the single estate story, we wanted the consumer, our first salvo, we want the consumer to taste the truest expression of what Luisita Rum would be. And we felt this is Luisita Rum in its purest form. And that's what we want to share. That's the first thing we want to share with the consumer. And I hope they will like it. It's 260 bottles, but you can't see it here, but there's a lot of barrels in there. So if they like it, if your friends like it, then there are more barrels in there that hopefully people will enjoy the way we've enjoyed it.
Yeah. And in many ways, I think just to touch more on what my dad just said is it's what we know. I mean, going into this thing, now we know that, there are blends, and then, looking at bourbon, scotch, you start to see these blended products. But as my dad stated, we wanted to start with what we know and how we've always done it, even when it wasn't, well, now that we're going commercial, but when it was for personal consumption, we've always just taken it out of one barrel, take it as it is, like, we're not going to muddle around with it too much. We won't add anything. So whatever comes out, that's what you get. So actually the hard part of this single barrel was finding this particular barrel, because each barrel is definitely going to be good on its own.
Yeah.
But I guess like people, they'll all mature on their own time. So that's the that's the difficulty, but at the same time, that's the uniqueness about the single barrel, is that we go through the exercise of actually tasting each and every barrel that we have. We constantly monitor them, take down some notes, flavor profiles, nose profiles, and this one just he it was ready. It was ready.
As a whiskey guy, man, I'm telling you, it's liquid gold. I just, yeah, for me, it's great. Now, of course, I'm just one guy. What aspect of Luisita Rum do you think works well to suit the Filipino palate?
I think in many ways it would be that natural sweetness. To me, being a sugarcane guy and knowing rum comes from sugarcane, it has to have that that sweet element to it. But I wouldn't say sugar sweet, but more just sugarcane sweet.
Yeah.
So whether it be like sweetness out of like molasses or maybe that brown sugar essence, um, and more so, it's aged in the Philippines, in one of the provinces here in the Philippines. So it's unadulterated. It's made by we're Filipinos. The team, they're proud Tarlaqueños, and I think that's what's that alone hopefully would translate into something that the Filipino would like. It's uniquely Filipino. It's uniquely, and not just that. It's uniquely Luisita. It's where Luisita is in Tarlac. It's really been aged, developed, grown here in this area. So even the cane is Filipino. So I think that's what that's the aspect of the rum that would really cater to our local palate.
By drinking it, you should be able to eventually, the rum should have a sense of place. That
Yeah.
over time, as you get used to this, you'll say, this comes from Luisita. There's something in it that the marker says, okay, yeah, only Luisita produces that. So
I guess the last major section question is there any future plans you can discuss with us besides the single barrel? Is there anything else you want to say that you're allowed to say?
There's definitely going to be more of the single barrel, but not much more. As you know, it's difficult to find a single barrel that can really. They can stand on its own, but to bottle and sell commercially. But there will be a few more single barrels. Probably blend maybe a few barrels. So instead of single barrel, maybe we'll have, depends. It can be 4 or 5 or 7. Depends on, we have a taste profile that we are constantly working on, that we think barrel 1 works with 2, and by putting them together, 1 plus 1 becomes 3. So hopefully that much I can say we're going to be rolling out in the next few months.
Some type of
products.
Small batch. And that's ultra small batch. That's not a American bourbon small batch.
No. Yeah. American bourbon small batch is like 100 barrels. So
at least.
We would probably be like a micro batch or something.
We have to invent a new word or new phrase,
Micro batch. I like
micro
that.
batch. Yeah.
Micro batch.
Yeah. Nano batch.
Nano batch even. Yeah.
I mean, are you guys in the future, when this whole COVID crisis calms down, will you guys eventually be open to visitors to check out the farm and distillery? What's up?
Yeah. Definitely. That's something we want to do, is open our doors to visitors. We can show them everything from what we do from the farm all the way to the distillery, the aging, the bottling. Uh, Paco's geared up for that. I'll also be there if I'm there. I don't mind giving people tours. Definitely, that's something we want to do is show everyone what we do and be as transparent as possible. We'll answer all their questions.
When the pandemic's over, I think that's gonna be another one of my designations is that I'm going to be the official tour guide for Luisita Rum, and I really cannot wait to have you, Leonard, the rest of your team back in, and whoever else might be listening out there. We'd love to have you come over to just
Yeah.
experience Luisita, the province of Tarlac even, and let's share a few drinks at that hangout and
Yeah.
really romanticize about not just rum, but the many intricacies of life, I guess.
Oh, for sure. Yes, that would sounds great. Anyways, guys, great conversation. I'm gonna stop recording here. Let's just talk for a few minutes after this, if you don't mind. But guys, everywhere outside that's watching this right now, the Whiskey Society of Manila, everyone, this will make you truly proud. This conversation, learning more about Luisita will make you proud of what they're doing. This is a truly Filipino product. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for doing this with us today.
No,
I
thank
Thanks,
you,
Mark.
Graham. Thank you.
really
Thank you for doing this. Yeah.
It's always, we love talking about rum and our product and just discovering new things.
we're very truly proud to be associated with you guys. And thank you once again, guys out there in the interwebs. Till next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.